In my case, nothing happened. They said sorry and closed the walk-in fridge door. Restaurants are a weird and wacky world. Yes, pizza restaurant of more than 10 years here, can confirm. Lots of young, stressed out, overworked people who don't have time to develop social relationships outside of the kitchen they're chained to for 45 hours a week. Add in the fact that many restaurants have lax enforcement of literally every rule they're supposed to have, and that so many restaurants' employees are college kids or early 20s college dropouts that are still attractive and cool, and that so many restaurants serve alcohol to their staff at a discount frequently on the clock, and you've got a perfect storm. A perfect, sweaty, dramatic, foolish, horny storm. Also, substances. Very true of hospitality. Also, this was a decade ago, but I remember seeing that there was an additional factor in some article or another. If employees don't like their boss, then the number of workplace flings flies through the roof. I guess people console one another against a hated foe. And most people working in restaurants hate their bosses. So yeah, no wonder they're always getting busy behind the bins. I used to work at the county jail, and we hired a new officer that worked in the cage. The cage control room is semi-private and has control of unlocking doors, so no one can walk in without the cage operator pushing a button. She was in an open marriage and put it out for just about anyone. She got caught when 8 officers got the clap. A few spouses, who got the clap from their cheating husbands, complained to the sheriff and she was fired. Demotions, suspensions, and firings of other male officers followed after an internal investigation. I mean, if you know she puts out for everyone, why in the name of sweet Satan's gonads would you not wear protection every darned time? When 8 people or more get the clap, it's called a round of applause. Am I right? Not me, but my ex-boss snorted white snow in our bathroom before going south of the border on a customer in our parking lot. Came back in and boasted to us that she got free green herb from this guy. A week later, fired. She's still engaged to her fiancé, who is not the customer, by the way. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. I used to work at a high-end restaurant for a few years, so I got a few stories. For instance, one time after closing up shop, we were getting ready to go home, when I heard a noise in one of the broom closets. I found 2 customers banging away in it after we'd closed down. Another time, I went into our walk-in freezer after we'd mostly closed to do a quick inventory, only to find one of the waitresses getting frickin' plowed by one of the other chefs. I laughed and said, "Don't let me interrupt, I'm just counting inventory." Another time, one of our corporate chefs got fired for thrashing his hog in the manager's office. So that was pretty neat. But the best one by far has to be the time we were closing up shop and this waitress and cook kinda had a little thing going on and the whole kitchen staff knew about it. So one day we saw them walk into our outdoor cooler and shut the door behind them. Someone mentioned it to me and naturally I told everyone who was still there. We all waited outside the door and listened to see if we could hear the sounds of them getting busy. And we did. So when they finished, they walked out only to be greeted by the entire closing staff shouting, "Frickin' finally!" Oh, they were so embarrassed. It was great. I never have, but I can tell you that entire company-wide design decisions have been made for Amazon fulfillment centers to help curb such actions. For example, all janitor closets are required to have half-glass doors. My math teacher got caught doing the deed with my English teacher on the school printer in the conference room. So he got the name Printer Effer. And yeah, he's German. The German word for printer is Drucker, so the name Drucker Effer sounds a lot better in my native language. Not me, but 2 co-workers at a small family restaurant. They got caught doing the deed in the bathroom when the owner literally opened the door on them because they didn't lock it. The girl was bent over the sink and they were watching themselves in the mirror. He slammed the door shut and when they came out a few minutes later, panicky and shamefaced, he yelled at them, "If you're gonna do that, you clock out first," while the rest of us laughed our butts off. Worked retail in college. We were in the stockroom, clothes mostly still on, when the shift manager came in. I had her up against some fitted shirts. Me and her were written up and sent home. They interviewed us separately the next day and we lied about not having a relationship so they wouldn't transfer one of us. Looking back, I'm actually pretty surprised we weren't fired. Co-worker and manager got caught. He got transferred and she started hitting on me, and everyone else. It was awkward, but they were both adults. Not necessarily on duty, but I was at work. I used to work on cruise ships, and crew occasionally got cabin inspections. My girlfriend/coworker and I were doing the deed in the morning when we heard a knock and the phrase, "cabin inspection," in an authoritative British accent, which we knew was the ship's captain. I managed to grab all of my clothes and run to the restroom. My girlfriend straightened out the room and managed to stall the captain and prevent him from checking the bathroom. She told me that I forgot the used rubbers on the floor and she managed to step on them to hide them with her bare feet. I owed her big time for that one. I used to work in fast food, and a manager got caught doing the deed with an employee. They were going to just transfer him, but they realized that the employee was 17 and the manager was 24, so he was fired. The employee quit because they thought it would keep the manager from being fired. I quit a few weeks later for unrelated reasons. I'm getting a lot of replies asking if we worked at the same place. It is scary how many places this seems to have happened at, and I work at Taco Bell. I worked at Whole Foods. A man and a wife working together, and the wife was 6 months pregnant. One day the wife goes out to their shared car during a lunch break, and lo and behold, inside the car, her husband is just banging away with another Whole Foods employee, someone much younger. I've never seen the entire store come together like a family as they did in that day to support the pregnant wife. The husband and wife did stay together against everyone's advice, and the young lady he cheated with quit work. The ones who I caught at work started dating immediately after they were caught, and now they're moving in together. The boss gave no Fs about it either. I was a whitewater raft guide 10 years ago. We would party at the area where we stacked our rafts at night at our boathouse, and we slept in tents nearby. One thing led to another, and my girlfriend at the time and I got on top of a stack of rafts under the stars quite drunk. The boathouse manager lived in a small apartment with an upstairs window directly adjacent to this stack of rafts. We would be introduced to our tours by him each day with a fun little anecdote like, "This is James, best river guide west of the Mississippi." So the next day after we did this, after saying nothing to us, he was introducing us to a new crowd and went, "Okay, now your guide is going to be Chelsea the Screamer," with a pointed look at us. She looked like she saw a ghost and then laughed it off. There were no further repercussions beyond the call-out and a bit of laughs. It was a laid-back environment, though. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm not sure you could ever get away with in a modern office environment, but it seems like par for the course for an outdoorsy job where the staff happen to get busy well away from the gaze of any HR-type folks. Worked at a bank branch a long time ago, and one of the financial advisors was pregnant with twins, and everyone was super happy for her. Apparently she'd been trying for several years with her husband, and it finally worked. Fast forward to her last day at work before her maternity leave, we decided to throw her a small goodbye party at the branch employees' room after closing hours. The husband was present as well. 15 minutes passed and suddenly the husband decided it was time for a toast and that apparently he made a lovely video for his wife to show her how grateful he was on a USB stick and insisted on showing us the video. So the manager bought him his laptop so we could watch it. The video was a hidden camera, I guess, in their bathroom of the advisor doing the deed with another guy with sound and everything. We were all so shocked the video played for a good minute until the manager closed his laptop and basically sent everyone home. The advisor was crying her life out, the husband had this evil smile on his face and took his USB stick out of the laptop and said, "See you in court," and left. I was an engineer at a company. A couple were fired for doing the deed in his car in the parking lot. Our company was one of the biggest CCTV manufacturers in the world. I designed camera control systems. Our parking lot was also used to test products, and had one of the highest camera per square foot ratio of any parking lot anywhere. Our cameras had amazing zoom capabilities. This just never occurred to these two brainiacs. Management insisted that we delete all footage. And to clarify, these weren't engineers, they were support. Maybe they had an associate degree, but I doubt it. The parking lot is company property. Company handbooks and HR training both say not on company property. Also strongly implied is not with the company name. At a college job in an office, the janitor walked in on me and another intern furiously banging it out with zero remorse in an empty conference room. The only repercussion is that now I get to marry her in a month. Kinda weird that the janitor forced you to marry her. Sort of work, but more like university. We worked as lab assistants, teacher's assistants kind of roles, and after we finished grading assignments in the classroom section of the lab every Wednesday night, her and I would do the deed on one of the desks. There were 10 desks and 10 weeks left in the semester, so we thought we would take advantage of the privacy and it would give us an excuse to grade quizzes and tests and work sets as fast as possible and do the deed on a different desk every week. The last week we were just screwing away on the last desk. The professor shows up with food thanking us for being so much more dedicated than all her other assistants in all her years teaching. She sees us, with the chick sitting on the desk with her legs spread wide and me facing her, thrusting, standing up. The professor says, "Well, this explains a lot. Don't get pregnant." She put the food down and left, locking the door on the way out. We finished, ate the food, and did the deed again. Best professor ever? Not even a question. My wife is a teacher. I visited her classroom after hours and we banged in the actual broom closet like something off a crappy sitcom. Of course, someone walked in and said, "Whoops," and left, and I almost lost my mind and my focus. But my wife was like, "Relax, half the staff are doing this, and I've caught a few in here myself before." It was difficult to finish. I got caught going at it in the toilets at a work party with my co-worker. Luckily, whoever it was saved us the embarrassment and just knocked on the door loudly. We straightened up and left, carried on drinking. The toilet was tucked away in this corner so the party couldn't see us leaving and no one was outside when we left. Nothing ever came of it, thankfully. Very funny though, 10 out of 10 would do again. We hired a new guy and as he was relocating across country, he asked for a job for his wife and we accommodated that. They ran the customer-facing aspect of our shop, which included a storefront that was only open a few hours a week. Because there was a cash box in that room, it was very secure. The owner's son had a reputation of raiding it whenever he needed a smack fix, so new doors and new locks, two-way mirrors, among other things. Routinely, we would call into the room to get things from them, and the phone would go unanswered. They assured us they were up to nothing, but we heard noises a few times, so I played a hunch. I was IT, and one day coming out of the server room, I passed them in the hall, and she asked what I was doing in there. And I fabricated a security system that no one bothered checking. I explained that I was in charge of tapes and updates, and that due to robbery and theft we had a camera in every room, including their office. I hadn't looked at it in months and was restoring the system to look at some stuff from the past 2 weeks. Fast forward about 20 minutes and they were tearing the room apart looking for a camera. You can hear her sobbing through the door, shocked at what I have on tape. They got a warning, I pointed into a vent as a heads up for the camera and warned it got the whole room. We eventually fired both of them. I worked in loss prevention. Catching other employees became a pretty normal event. Here's the thing, most retailers put twice as many cameras in employee areas as they do in customer areas. If it was between employees, they would get a verbal warning, sometimes a written, and managers and employees would cause one to get transferred, usually the manager. Employees and a non-employee in an employee-only area was either a written or a final warning given. I can't think of anything crazy, except for when I first caught someone, the other loss prevention people were just meh, and after a while it became a normal thing. What is the most embarrassing thing you had to tell your parents? When I was 7 or 8, my grandma bought me this pair of jean shorts that were way too small, but she insisted I wear them anyway. Throughout the course of the day, the rubbing of the shorts caused a few cuts and something like rug burn all over my downstairs bits. When I went to pee, of course, it burned like crazy. I had to go to my mum and explain what had happened. It was awful. I once got a bunch of jelly beans for Valentine's Day from my ex-girlfriend. I hate jelly beans. Absolutely think they're the worst tasting things in the world. But I acted like I was grateful and took them home. 4 weeks later, it's 8 p.m. on a Friday and my car broke down. No one could really make it out of my house, so I was sitting in my room bored. So I started tossing jelly beans up and trying to catch them in my ear. Well, after an hour, I got one to land in my ear, like really in my ear. I went to retrieve it and I pushed it in further. So for 30 minutes I tried getting it out, and it kept getting wedged deeper and deeper. So finally I walked upstairs, looked at my mum on the couch and said, "I have a jelly bean stuck in my ear." She blinked and stared for a minute, and then asked, "How old are you?" 16. "I'm going to use this key to try and get that jelly bean out of your ear. If that doesn't work, I'm using it to drive you to the pediatrician since you're a goddamn 4-year-old. She was able to get the jelly bean out after a while. I started a stamp collection when I was 13. I really liked stamps, but nobody mailed me anything, and my parents never got any good ones. So I started checking my paper route customers' mailboxes and was able to start a really good collection that way. I hid my collection in the basement because I thought my parents were searching my room. One day, my dad found hundreds of letters addressed to different people in the neighborhood where I hid them behind the Christmas stuff, and he freaked and started yelling at my mum. He said he knew what she was up to and wanted a divorce. I was scared and embarrassed, but didn't want my parents to split up, so I confessed to the collection. They made me walk my route and return all the letters while my dad videotaped me. They did split up that year anyway, so I shouldn't have said anything. My dad sent me the videotape for my 30th birthday present with a card that just said, "Good times." Oh my god, you absolute thicko. I think I was a lot younger than 13 before I was finally able to logic out why you shouldn't steal other people's mail. Still, I hope your father allowed you to keep the stamps on the mail you stole. I doubt the recipients were going to keep them anyway. He has a pretty good sense of humor, too. I have to tell mine that I'm having surgery. Circumcision, age 26, because I tore it while doing it in the butt with a woman twice my age. The first time I splooged when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I think I was just rubbing myself on the side of the bed or something, and suddenly I had no idea what was coming out of me. I hadn't learned about this, and just this white stuff dripping out of my gentleman made me freak the frick out. I had no idea if it was natural or something terribly wrong had just happened, and my mum was sleeping, so I woke her up to tell her that some weird white stuff just came out of my wee-wee. Obviously, she was a bit shocked and was trying to hide her laughter. I was a bit confused, and she kind of briefly explained what I did and said it was fine and not to worry. I don't think I thought about it too much at the time, but when I was a little older, I realized how I woke my mum up to tell her how I splooshed for the first time, and my embarrassment burned like a red-hot poker. When I was 17, I tried to wake my mum up after she'd worked until about 3 a.m. She didn't want to wake up, of course, and then I told her it was because I needed to go to the Planned Parenthood to get the morning after pill, about 17 years ago. And that got her up in a flash. Didn't even ask questions or complain to me. I guess she wasn't ready to be a grandma. I was younger and I didn't really know how to fix the problem, but my number 2 was too big to flush down the toilet, so I had to ask for help. Oh, come on, just pick it up and break it in half like a man. I was 9 or so, and I did number 2, and blood came out, but instead of my mother, my father came. He freaked out, thinking that I was having my period too early, and ran to call my mom. I had to tell mine that I didn't know what a virgin was. In middle school, I didn't really know a lot about doing the deed, but I sure as crap knew how to tickle my pickle. Anyway, some conversations started at lunch, and if I recall correctly, some kid made fun of a girl because she wasn't a virgin anymore. Somehow I got pulled into it, and I said I wasn't either. More questions, with me backpedaling and finally admitting I didn't know what a virgin was. Cue my classmates making fun of me all day. In science class, I wrote a self-deletion note and folded it up. I put Mom on it and put it in my backpack. I got home, went off to karate, and forgot about everything. Mom picks me up and she has the note on her dashboard. Busted. Long story short, we had the talk, and then I had to go with my stepdad to the library and get a educational booklet on doing the deed. The one thing I remember from one of the books was that there were comments every few pages from a cat. One page about girls' periods and tampons had the cat wearing a sombrero with tampons hanging off the hat. The other page shows the cat all proud and him saying he just caught a mouse. Then a look of fear and he says, "Help, I've swallowed a tampon." It was a very strange day.